Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at part 3 from Ritchie's Fabulae Faciles, the Jason and the Argonauts story. So this is called the Golden Fleece, right, which is what Jason is most famous for, right, the Argonauts and trying to find the Golden Fleece. So we're going to pick up the story, like we said. We're getting a little bit of background about Jason, his father, his uncle, who's taken over the throne, and this prophecy that said, to the uncle, watch out because someone's going to show up with one shoe, and that's like not a great thing for you, right? And we saw in the last chapter that Jason, on his way to this feast, right, this giant party that's being thrown by his uncle, he loses his shoe in the river. So the prophecy is all starting to kind of come together, okay? And we'll see how the Golden Fleece ties into all of this. But before we start, like I always say, whenever you're doing these videos or trying to read through Ritchie's Fabulae Faciles, I would always highly recommend that you start with vocab. Okay, so there's a bunch of good resources out there. Quizlets, different lists, things like that, where you can find the vocab already made for you. Again, I always reference Jeffrey Stedman has made a really great resource that'll break down the grammar and the vocab for you. So there's a bunch of different ways you can find it, or you can just make your own, right? Do a little pre-reading and figure out what words you don't know, and look them up, get a little vocab list for yourself. But one way or another, you want to practice because it's really hard to understand what's going on if you don't know what the words mean, right? It's kind of a non-starter. So always start there, get the vocab down. The other thing I recommend is reading this aloud. You hear me say it a lot, but read the story aloud. If you're a student, try to find a classmate, someone you can read it to, so you work on your speaking, your pronunciation. And when they read it back to you, you can work on your listening skills, right? Latin's a language. You don't want to just translate it in your head. You're not doing yourself any favors, and hearing it might be the key that kind of unlocks it for you, right? Saying it aloud might unlock something to help you out. You want to treat it like a normal language, right? Don't just read it in your head, all right? So if you haven't done that, go back and do it. Work your way through. When it's time to actually translate it, like I said, do the read and reread method, which you hear me say a lot. Read through it, write down any problem areas you have, try to fix those problem areas, and then go back to the story and read it again, and just keep repeating that. And as you go, you're going to get better and better. Your list of problems will get smaller until you're able to read this without any issue, right? That's how you know you're ready to move on. If you haven't read it yet, go read it on your own and just use what we're going to do in this video as a double check, okay? So the story picks up here. You have Iason igitur cum calceum amisum nullo modo recipere posset, uno pede nudo in regiam pervene. So we're talking about Jason. Remember, he's on his way to the feast, and he's going through that river. So you have Jason, therefore, right? When he was not able to recover. So you have the cum clause here, right, going with posset. So it's easiest to translate it when he was not able to, or sorry, when he was able to recover, recuperate in no way, right, is kind of one way to do nullo modo, his calceum amissum. So remember, the calceum is like a shoe, right? I guess a sandal is kind of one way to do it too, like a little leather shoe sandal, however you want to translate that. But he's not able to get it. So this cum clause is going with that imperfect subjunctive, right? Where you have possum there. So the amissum is going with calceum. So amissum is just a perfect passive participle from amito, which means to lose. And again, the nullo modo there is in no way, just an ablative manner. So you're saying when he was able in no way to recuperate, to recover his shoe having been lost, or his lost shoe, right? So he's in the river, he can't get his shoe. What does he do? He just keeps going, right? So since he wasn't able to do that, he pervened, he reached or arrived into the regiam, the kingdom, right, of his uncle, uno pede nudo, with one bare foot, right? So the uno pede nudo there is an ablative absolute. So what you're looking at is an ablative absolute that needs that participle there, right? So we usually add being, right? You put in sum, right? Some version of sum there. So if you add being to it, one way to translate it would be he showed up to the kingdom with one foot being bare, nudo, same idea, or with one bare foot. Either way, you're going to get the right translation. But he shows up with one shoe missing, which is the prophecy that came from the oracle. Okay. Then you continue, and you have quem cum pelias vidisset, subito timore affectus est, intellexit enim hunc esse hominum quem oraculum demonstravisset. So here you have Pelias, right, his uncle, and he knows, like, I remember that prophecy, right? So you have when Pelias saw this person is really how you want to do quem. So quem literally means like whom in this case, but a lot of times when you see that relative in English, it's better to make it a demonstrative. It's like this one, right? This person. It's talking about Jason, right? And here you have the cum clause going with the pluperfect subjunctive we just said. So when he had seen, you might even want to say, right? When he had seen this person, and again, it's referring to Jason, right? This person without with one shoe missing, suddenly affectus est, he was moved, he was kind of overcome or affected, timore, by fear, right? So he knows what's going on. So suddenly he's afraid. And he's afraid, for he intellects it, he understood that this one, right, Hunk, meaning Jason, this man, was the man. So this one was the man. Again, this is all indirect statement. That's why you're seeing the accusative and the infinitives here. So this one was the man whom the oracle, oraculum, demonstravisset, the oracle had shown or had mentioned, is kind of another way to do it, right? Had kind of like pointed out. But he knows that this is the man from the oracle, right? So when Pelias sees this, he's like, oh, I got it, right? He immediately understands what's going on. And again, the end of this line is working an indirect statement, right? That's why you have the hunc hominem going with essay there. So it's this idea that he immediately understands what's going on, right? He's like, oh, I'm in trouble, okay? Then you continue on. You have hoc igitur consilium init. Rex erat quidam aetes, qui regnum cocidis illo tempore obtinebat, or obtinebat, I should say. Okay, so you have he therefore made this plan, right? So consilium iniet hoc, right? Hoc consilium iniet. So he kind of led or made this plan. So he comes up with a plan of what he's going to do. And you have erat rex, there was a king, right? And it's quidam, a certain king. There was some king. Remember, quidam there is the indefinite adjective, and it's describing Aetes, right? This king. So there was a certain king, Aetes, who, right? Qui, you have the relative there, who at that time, right? Illo tempore. At that time, he obtained the regnum, right? Obtinebat regnum. He was kind of holding, or he was obtaining the rule of Colchis, right? Colchis. So he's a neighboring king. And this is someone that Pelias knows, okay? Then it continues. You have hic commissum erat illud velos aureum, quod frixus olim ibi reliquerat. Okay, so now you're going to see how the whole golden fleece story comes into play. So you have hic, to this one, right? To this person, you have the dative there, right? So to this person had been entrusted, right? Commissum erat, had been entrusted something. So we're still looking for the subject, like what got entrusted to this person? Well, it's illud velos aureum, right? That golden fleece. So here we have the velos aureum, the golden fleece that we're talking about. And it's the golden fleece which, quote, Phrixus once had left there, I should say, right? Ibi reliquerat, right? So it left behind there. So you can look this up if you want, but the short version of what this is referencing is kind of the backstory of the Golden Fleece, right? It's this Golden Fleece that rescues Phrixus, right, and brings him to Colchis. And if I remember correctly, Phrixus sacrifices that, I think, to Zeus, but he ends up leaving it there in Colchis. That's why it's still sitting there, right? He sacrificed it, he gave it to King Aetes, right, and they kind of keep it in this certain spot. And now you're going to see how this all ties into Jason. But the Golden Fleece is hanging out in Colchis, right? And you want to remember, like, Colchis is a region, right? You can look at it's on the Black Sea. If I remember right, it's like that far eastern part of the Black Sea. But there's a location, right, where Jason is going to have to go find it. Okay, so they're referencing this king, right, Aetes, who has the Golden Fleece. Okay. Then it continues. You have constituit egitor Pelias Jasoni negotium dare ut hoc velere potiretur, cum enim res esset magni periculi, eum in itinere periturum esse spereba. Okay, so you have therefore, right? So there's this king over there, the Golden Fleece. So therefore, Pelias decided, right? Constituit Pelias. So he decided to give to Jason. So dare, right? There's the giving part. Yasone is the dative. So to give to Jason the task, the negotium, the labor, the task is probably a good way to do it, right? And it's the task that you have the ut clause there. So to make it kind of flow a little bit better in your translation, it probably makes sense to do it as namely that, right? You see that sometimes when people translate it. So he gave him this task, namely that he should potiretor, he should gain possession of or get possession of that fleece, hoc velere, right? So this is the task that Pelias gives to Jason. He's like, I want to get him out of here. And again, we've seen this before in these stories from Ritchie, the idea of like, give this person a task and hopefully they die and you never see him again, right? So he tells Jason, he's like, hey, you have to go get the Golden Fleece, right? That's what's going on there. And then you have the kun enim res esset, magni periculi, right? So, and he does this since this thing, this race, this affair, this task, you might even say, was of great danger, esset magni periculi, right? So this is a really dangerous thing to be doing. So he's really hoping that, that Jason dies. And then the cum periculi there, or the phrase from cum to periculi, I should say, is just a causal cum clause, right? So again, we're working with subjunctives. You have the imperfect subjunctive esset there. So since this was such a thing of, great danger, and he was hoping, sperabat, right? Here's what he's really hoping would happen. He's hoping that he would die on the journey, right? He was hoping that eum, right? He, referencing Jason, in itinere, so on the journey, periturum esse, that he would die, right? And the periturum esse there is a little bit tricky, but what you're looking at is an indirect statement, right? And you have the future infinitive, right? So the periturum esse, you can recognize it because of the UR in the middle, right? Think future, and it's from pereo, right? So this whole, and pereo means to like perish or die. So when you put it all together, that's why you're seeing this, right? It's all kind of governed by that hoping verb, right? Spereba. But he's hoping that he would die on the journey. So he's like, perfect, go off, get the golden fleece, and hopefully I'll never see this guy again. And again, it's this idea of I can avoid my fate. And we've seen this in a lot of the Ritchie stories. You can't. Once the oracle tells you what's going to happen, it's going to happen. And usually when you try to avoid your fate, you actually bring it about, right? Which is what we see time and time again. Then it continues on. You have second to last line here. You have Iasonem igitor ad se arcesiwit. There we go. Arcesiwit et eum cohortatus quid fieri velet docuit. Okay, so therefore he summoned Jason. So arcesiwit, he summoned Jason ad se to himself. So he's like, hey, Jason, come over here, right? This guy with the one shoe bandit over here. He's like, get over here. So he summoned Jason to himself. And having cohortatus, having like urged him on, or maybe encouraged him is a good way to do it. Having encouraged him, right? So urging him on, he's like, "You're going to do great, kid. Come over." You can almost envision him patting him on the back, like, "Yeah, you're going to do great." And that cohortatus, by the way, is a perfect passive participle. What's just a deponent one, right? So having urged him on or having encouraged him, he told him. So the docwit there, you want to translate as told. So he told him quid fieri velet. So he told him what he wanted to be done, is how you can piece this all together. So docwit, right? He told him what quid he velet, right? He wanted fieri to be done. So he turns to Jason. He's like, hey, this is what I need you to do, buddy. And here's how I want you to figure it out. Okay. And you're looking again at that imperfect subjunctive there, volo, what he wanted. And you're looking at that fieri there is a present infinitive. It's just an irregular verb, fio, right? So that's why it kind of looks a little bit odd. But if you piece it together, you'll get the translation, right? So you summon Jason. He's like, hey, here's what you're going to do, buddy. You're going to go find the golden fleece, okay? And then we get to the last line. So you have ille etsi intellegebat rem esse difficilimam negotium libenter suscepit. Okay, so although that one, Jason is who it's talking about, right? Even though Jason, that one understood intellegebat, right? He understood that the rem esse difficilimam. So he understood that the affair, the task, you might even say, was very difficult, right? Difficilimam. He did it anyway, right? So suscepit, he undertook it, or he undertook the negotium, the business, the task, libenter, willingly, right? So the idea is Jason knows this is like a very dangerous thing to be doing, but he does it anyway. He takes on the challenge, right? So he hears that he needs to go get the golden fleece, and he's like, fine, right? So he goes off, and now Jason has been set up with his task of going to get the golden fleece, right? Which is where we're going to get, the story of the Argonauts. So that's it for this chapter. We've introduced, Jason and Pelias meeting each other. The oracle comes back into play, and now Jason has been set off on this adventure to go find the golden fleece. And we're going to see how he does it and how he puts together the Argo, right? The ship he's going to be going with, and that's where you get the Argonauts, and we'll get into that all later. But for now, we're kind of see how this all has played out. Okay, so if you have any questions at all, feel free to put them in the comments below. I'm happy to help explain anything. But hopefully this made some sense and you're able to work through it. And again, if you've been reading through Ritchie's Fabulae Faciles from the beginning with the Perseus story, you see a lot of the sentences really follow the same path. A lot of the vocab repeats. So hopefully it should be getting pretty easy to read as you go and practice it. But you are also seeing a lot more advanced grammar now that we've gotten to the third story of Ritchie's. You're seeing more difficult things. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. But otherwise, keep at it, keep practicing, try the read and reread method. And if you're able to read through this and come up with something pretty close to what we just did here, you know that you're on the right track and you should be good to go. Good luck.